I have been a 911 dispatcher for about 3 years now. I don't know how my life eventually led me to work in this field, but somehow it happened. As you can probably imagine, it is not the best job to have. The pay is not good at all, and it is definitely not worth the emotional roller coaster that comes with it. I cannot tell you how many sleepless nights I have had due to what I hear on the other line. Most of my calls aren't too bad, mostly minor domestic disputes and armed robbery reports. But on rare occasion, I would get a disturbing call, describing a murder scene or something along those lines. The calls with kids were also some of the worst. But one call sticks out, and it happened only a few weeks ago. I live in a decently small town, so crime is not the biggest issue. But I guess that is why whenever I get a call about a murder-bought grisly crime, it hits worse emotionally. All calls get to me, but not as much as the serious ones do. I'm not saying only some are serious and some aren't, but you get the point. A few nights ago, I got a call at about 11:30 p.m. I don't usually work overnight, but one of my coworkers was out sick, so I volunteered for a double shift, as my boss would pay me overtime if I did so. I'm just sitting at my desk, daydreaming about whatever, when I get the call. I brace myself and answer. This is what was said. Me. 911. Where's your emerg? Caller. God, please help me. Please, stop her. I was caught completely off guard by the caller screaming into the phone and immediately put on edge. The caller was a man, as I could tell by the deepness in the voice. I knew already this was not routine, and I immediately tried to calm him down so I could find out where he was and send police, fire, EMTs to his location. Me. Sir, calm down. I need you to tell me where you are. Caller. 612 Yokar Street. Please send somebody. I have an intruder, and she is trying to kill me. Yokar Street was near the edge of town, so it would take police at least 10 minutes to get there. I had to get enough information out of the caller to inform the traveling officers about what they would be dealing with if things escalated. Me. Police are on their way. Are you hurt? Caller. No, but she wants to hurt me. She is destroying everything in the house, and she is screaming her fucking head off. Through the phone, I could now hear the muffled screams of a girl. It was now apparent that the intruder was inside the house. Me. Is there anyone else in the house besides yourself and the intruder? Caller. Number 1. I was alone before she broke in. Me. Okay, I need you to listen to me carefully. Lock yourself inside a room and hide. Stay on the line with me. Caller. I'm already locked inside the bedroom and hiding under the bed. Me. Okay, good. Tell me what happened. Caller. I don't know. I woke up and heard things rattling in the living room. I got up and investigated, and there was a girl standing there, fiddling with one of the cabinets. I tried to quietly return to my room and call for help, but as soon as I moved, she noticed me. Once she saw me, she screamed so fucking loud and charged at me. I sprinted back to my room and slammed the door shut. I then locked it. Me. Is she near your room? Caller. No, I don't think so. We both then hear a loud bang, and the man gives out a fearful cry. Caller. Oh God, she's now pounding on the door. Through the phone, I could hear the rhythmic thumps on wood. Now I knew the situation was becoming direr. Most intruders, if caught by the house's occupants, will usually try and flee. This intruder has not left after being seen. She was now trying to kill. Caller. Please tell the police to hurry. I think she is about to break down the door. Me. They are on their way. They will be there soon. I prayed they would be. Me. Can you describe the girl for me? Caller. Yeah, I can try to. Already I was panicking for the caller. I couldn't have imagined how frightening the whole situation would be. But the description the caller then gave me was bone-chilling. Caller. She looks like a child. She's not an adult. That I know for sure. She looked to be at least 7 or 8 years old. She was wearing a small skirt, and there were dark spots on it. Her hair was dark and about shoulder length or so. Her neck was messed up. Her head was just hanging from her neck. But her eyes, oh God, her eyes were missing. There was no light. The sockets looked empty. I was becoming more and more horrified the more he described her. This was no longer your typical burglar. No little girl breaks into homes in the middle of the night with intent to kill. This little girl didn't even sound human, not by how the caller was describing her. 5 minutes had passed, and I prayed the police would get there soon. The man was crying at this point, and he was growing more and more panicked with every passing second. Me. Do you know why this girl could have broken into your home? Caller. I don't know. He then stopped for a few seconds before continuing. Caller. She stopped banging on the door. I listened, and there was nothing. No noise other than the caller's panicked breaths. Me. Okay, stay very quiet for me. Stay where you are. Caller. Okay. Me. If it sounds like she is leaving your house, please tell me. Caller. Well, now that you mentioned it, this isn't my house. Me. Wait, excuse me. Caller. This? He didn't even get to finish what he was going to say. As soon as he spoke, I heard a massive crash and the man yelled. I heard the ear-splitting screams of the man and the intruder. Then the line went dead. I sat at my desk, frozen and silent for a good few minutes. I then broke down, and one of my fellow dispatchers, who had heard my conversation while sitting at his desk, immediately came over and comforted me. I told him what had just happened, and his face went white as snow. He was horrified. He must be thankful, however, that he didn't have to hear it firsthand. The police arrived a very short time later. I wanted to find out what the hell was going on as soon as I could. Thankfully, I have a friend of mine on the force who told me what she and the other officers discovered. This is what she told me when I talked to her the next day. The house had no forcible entry. No windows were broken, and the front and back door were locked and secure. She and the other officers on scene were dumbfounded, as they couldn't figure out how the intruder got in. This either meant that the intruder was willingly let into the home, which the caller did not tell me, or that the intruder was already in the house when the caller returned to a house that wasn't even his, which at the time seemed to be the most likely. Nevertheless, the cops eventually were able to pry open a window and get inside to check on the caller. The house was a mess. Everything, from picture frames to glasses to even a refrigerator, were wrecked. It was as if a demolition crew had a field day inside the house. The bedroom door was blown off its hinges. The door was in pieces, and there were wooden shards everywhere. If the cops weren't already creeped out at this point, they were just beginning to be. My friend told me that a linebacker couldn't have caused that much damage to the door in one blow, let alone a little girl. She was already on edge, but it got much, much worse when they eventually found the caller. The man was found in the bathroom connected to the bedroom he was hiding in. It was gruesome. His blood was everywhere, most of it flowing from a gaping hole in his abdominal region. Some of it, however, was on the walls of the bedroom and the ceiling. His eyes were also missing. My friend said a couple of police officers passed out or vomited from sheer shock after looking at the grisly atrocity that happened to the man. I was already horrified by what I had heard. The man had died a very violent death, and this intruder was still out there. But my friend then told me something that made this case more bone-chilling than it already was. While looking around the house, one of the officers found an out-of-place wall near the kitchen. The wall looked to be artificial. It was connected to another wall, but it was only about 4 feet high and seemed to serve no purpose. It almost looked like a barrier to the kitchen, though there was an opening right next to it. The officer knocked on it lightly. Not only was it hollow, but when the officer knocked, a small hole opened up. He knocked on very lightly, but the wall was so weak that it was enough force to actually penetrate it. He shined a flashlight inside and saw a blanket on the ground. But what caught his attention wasn't the blanket itself. Rather, it was the lump underneath it. He called for the other officers to come over to him ASAP, and they broke through the rest of the wall. They inspected the blanket, and one of the officers lightly brushed the blanket off the lump. What they found was almost as disturbing as the dead collar. It was the dead body of a young girl. They immediately closed off the area, and crime scene technicians came and investigated. After some time, the coroner came and took the two bodies to the morgue. A few days later, the rest of the details came out about this case. I was eager to hear what the coroner and police had discovered, and my friend called me to tell me the rest of the story as soon as she found out. The caller had died from, and this was the exact term my friend used, blood loss from being gutted. His eyes were never found. The girl was identified as Taylor Watherton, a 9-year-old girl who went missing a little over 2 years ago. She went missing from a local playground, and she was last seen wearing a polka dot-covered skirt. I didn't think much of it until I found a missing persons poster with her picture on it. She was a cute, petite girl, with black hair that ran just to her shoulders. As I was looking at her photo, I couldn't stop thinking about that skirt she was last seen in. I felt like I was missing something. And then it hit me, and I almost fainted as I remembered what the caller told me. Caller. She was wearing a small skirt, and there were dark spots on it. Her hair was dark and about shoulder length or so. Apparently, the coroner determined that she had been dead for not that long at all. According to him, she appeared to be dead no longer than a month. While the cause of death could not be determined exactly, her neck was broken, and it wasn't post-mortem. I told my friend when I originally talked to her that the caller said the house wasn't his. She did some digging and reported back to me around the same time the rest of the details were released. The house belonged to a man named Travis Quinsley, who had recently been reported missing. He had apparently told his family he was going on a trip to Canada, as he had a few friends who lived up there, and that they were going to have a guy week. However, he didn't return when he was supposed to. During this time, his family would rotate house sitting. His brother, Colby, was the caller. I knew what he had looked like. His photo had been shown on the news a couple of times since his body was identified alongside a missing child. He was a young man with straight strawberry blonde hair and a decent build. After talking to my friend, I looked up a picture of what Travis looked like. If he was missing, I wanted to at least have an image of his face that I could put into the back of my mind. My heart dropped when I looked at a picture of him together with his brother on one of his social media accounts. It was captioned, "Back with the twin." He looked exactly like Colby. I worked as a dispatcher for a pretty small ambulance station near a fairly large city in the middle of the US. IDK how specific I can be since this is a true story. And I'm going to tell one of the craziest stories I have from this job. We had a patient who we will call Susan. She was a dialysis patient, and one of the services we offered was to take very unwell or disabled patients to and from these dialysis appointments. She lived with her son, who we will call David. He was in his late 40s, and his mother, Susan, in her late 70s or so. Every week, like clockwork, we would have a unit bring Susan to and from her dialysis treatments 3 times a week. Everyone knew her at the station because we had been doing this for quite some time with Susan. We were all familiar with her and her son, whether it was the crew seeing her in person and taking care of her, or speaking to her, or her son on the phone frequently about the appointments, as I had done. Everyone knew her. Naturally, when crews had news about her health, they would report back to keep everyone in the loop with how she was. At one point, she was not feeling well at all. But she wanted to go to her dialysis appointment, so naturally we obliged and took her in. At this appointment, while receiving dialysis treatment, she lost consciousness and was promptly taken by our crew to the hospital. When it was time again for her dialysis appointment, we gave the hospital a call to see if she had been released and was able to go to the appointment. The hospital staff informed us that she would likely be released the following day and would be receiving that dialysis treatment in the hospital. Then the next treatment time rolled around, and we called the hospital, and we were told she had been released from their care the other day. This was great news, but a little strange, due to the fact that we were always her first call to transport her to or from any hospital or appointment, and we hadn't transported her anywhere. We quickly moved on, however, and called David, her son, to see if she was going to be requiring us for her treatment that day. He informed us she wasn't feeling well and that she wasn't up to it, but that he was considering taking her back into the hospital. We tell him that if he needs us to just give us a call, and until further notice, we cancel her trip for the day. We never get a call. Next appointment rolls around, and we call David again to ask if she will be going. He says she's sick and she's back in the hospital. Weird again, since we hadn't taken her, but doesn't seem that off considering her health had been deteriorating. Next appointment, same thing happens. We call David, his mom's in the hospital. We move on. Now is where things took a bit of a turn. When the next appointment came up, we had tried calling David to ask about his mother's status, but he never answered or returned our calls. So, being that we had a contract with Susan and were to take her to these appointments unless told otherwise, we sent a crew to collect her for treatment. When the crew arrived at scene, they knocked on the door to no response. They knocked again and were greeted by David smoking a cigarette. David seeming surprised, the crew said they were there to pick up Susan for her appointment. David responded, stating he had forgotten to call, but Susan was still in the hospital not doing well. The crew gave their best wishes, and David shut the door. But the crew felt like something was off. They immediately radioed to dispatch that something was wrong, and they requested we call the hospital. David said she was at to see if she was still there. The hospital had no record of her being there since we last knew. So we had the crew leave the scene, and we called for a welfare check on Susan at her son's home. We heard nothing the rest of the day from police, David, Susan, or anyone else involved. The next morning I came into work, and the very first call I took began with, "This is Sheriff. With your matibay to Ostatabakar. I'm calling to report back on the welfare check you asked us to perform yesterday." I was nervous, as he sounded concerned, and I didn't really expect them to call us back with any news. He proceeded to let me know that upon arrival to the home, they spoke with David, who was adamant his mother didn't feel well, but that she was home from the hospital. The police asked to just check on Susan to make sure she was all right, and eventually David obliged, letting the police in. Once entering the home, they were met with a grim scene, though I imagine they smelled it first. They continued to explain that what the officers observed was the dead body of Susan propped up on the couch wrapped in blankets, as if watching the television. But she'd been dead for a while. They approximated around 2 weeks. When speaking to David, they found that he had been changing her clothes regularly and watching TV with her. Obviously, he was suffering from some sort of mental issue and grief, but the thing was, he had never taken good care of her until she was dead. No news coverage, no updates from police further than that, nothing. Stuff like this happens in your hometown and you'll never know. Crazy, right? 911. "What's your emergency?" I said as I answered the phone. "There's a bat in my house." A loud scream came over the speaker. "Send someone to come and get it." "All right, ma'am. I will send animal control over as soon as possible." The caller thanked me and said she will be outside waiting. I pressed the button to dispatch the nearest unit. I sat in my cubicle, doodling with my ballpoint pen on a piece of blank white paper. Being a dispatcher isn't always easy, especially in the middle of nowhere, Montana, with a population of 500. We get random calls about bobcats, bison, and bears coming in the front yards, teenagers prank calling because they are bored, and of course the regular hunting emergencies. But all of this is few and far between. Sometimes we could go hours without getting a call, which made it hard when you work the night shift alone. "Kara?" I heard my straight-laced boss say as he came down the hallway. "I'm here," I yelled back, still doodling on the white paper. I could hear his staggered footsteps coming my direction. "Oh, hey," he said, popping his head around the corner. "I'm leaving. Do you need anything before I go?" "I think I'm good." I held up my now cold coffee. "I'll turn off the rest of the lights then. Have a great night." I heard the sound of the lights turning off down the hallway. It's those fluorescent lights that make a buzzing sound whenever you're under them. I hate it when they get turned off. Everything gets so silent. Being in this building at night all by yourself, the imagination can get the best of you. I sat at my desk and looked at the 7 computer screens. On one screen, I could see exactly where the emergency responders were located at any given moment. I started memorizing the street names in our designated area. At this time, nothing was going on. It had been a very quiet night. I took a sip of my cold coffee and started jotting down my grocery list for the next day. At this point, the coffee was only doing so much to keep me awake at 1 a.m. "What do I need?" I asked out loud. I wrote down that I needed chicken, vegetables, toilet paper, wine, multiple bottles of wine. I finished making my list, folded it into my jeans pocket. A beeping sound started coming through my headphones, meaning someone was calling in. I looked up as a name and number flashed on the screen in front of me. 911? "What's your emergency?" I said clearly to the person on the other line. "I need help," a child's voice said. "What's your name? What can I help you with?" I said. Back to the frightened young girl. "I need help," she said again. I replied, "I can't help you unless you tell me what's wrong." And then the phone line went dead. I immediately dialed the number back, but there was no dial tone and it wouldn't reconnect. I decided to call one of the responding officers to check it out. "Jenkins, I need you to respond to 5689 Hickory Valley Road. There could be a possible VIC. I tried calling her back, but I got no answer," I said into my headphones. "Thanks, Kara. Hope you are having a good night all by your lonesome." He started laughing. "What are you going to do all by yourself in that little cubicle of yours?" "You're an asshole. As a matter of fact, I am having a great night by myself. Keep me updated," I said back. "Roger that." I sat back in my chair, looked at the right-hand screen. A red dot started moving slowly toward the area where the young girl called from. I watched as it got closer and closer. Then the dot just stopped. This usually meant the responding officer got to the location or close to it. Our map showed streets, but it didn't pinpoint the exact spot. As I waited for Jenkins to call me back, I took another sip of coffee. I watched the clock as it slowly passed. Second by second, minute by minute. I was about to ring him back when the computers lit up. 911 dispatch, what's the exact location of your emergency? I looked up as the name and phone number flashed on the screen. This time, I said the name out loud. Olivia Taylor. "I tried calling you back, but we couldn't get an answer. A responding officer should be there shortly," I said fast, but in a stern manner. "Why won't you help me?" she whimpered. I heard her crying on the other line. "We are trying to help you, Olivia. Someone should be there any second, I promise you." "Can you stay on the line with me?" I said, while trying to get my shit together. "Closet. You can find us in the closet." I could hear another distant whimpering that wasn't coming from the VIC on the line. "Olivia, is there someone else with you?" My heart felt like it was going to fall out of my chest. "I have to go. He will hear me," she cried out. "Who will hear you, Olivia?" And the phone went dead again. I looked on the map and noticed Jenkins' spot had not moved. Growing concerned, I called him back. The phone rang and rang, but finally he answered. "Jenkins," he said with authority. Oh, thank God. I took a second to catch my breath. My heart was pounding a mile a minute. "What, Kara? You can't handle being in that place by yourself? You have to call me all the time." He tried to make a joke, but soon realized I wasn't playing around. "What's going on? Are you okay?" "I got another call from the VIC. What's your ETA?" I closed my eyes and tried to stay calm. This is part of the job requirement. Waiting for backup. This place is out of the middle of nowhere. There is only a path through the woods that the cruiser can't fit through. We have to go on foot. Should only be another couple of minutes. I took a look at the screen. I could see 2 dots moving closer to Jenkins. "Call me once you get to the property. She's hiding in the closet. I believe there is someone else with her," I informed him. "Thanks for the update. I'll call you once I reach the site." And he hung up. I had to take a moment to decompress. I walked down the long hallway to the bathroom. As I turned on the light, it flickered to the sound of my heartbeat. The familiar buzzing sound calmed me as I splashed cold water on my face. I could tell my color had changed as I looked in the mirror. The normal tan hue was now pale white and my pupils were dilated. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay, I reassured my reflection. As I walked out of the restroom, I could hear a beeping sound coming from my headphones again. I ran to my cubicle thinking it was Jenkins giving me an update. But as I saw the name on the screen, my stomach immediately dropped. "Olivia, I know this is you. Are you okay?" I looked at the screen with the map. "The officers are on their way. They should be there in less than a minute." There was no response. "Are you there? Can you hear me, Olivia?" A whimper came over the other line. "It's too late," she finally said. "He's in the room. He heard me." "Who is in the room with you? Please tell me so I can let the officers know." I took a deep breath, determined to stay calm. "He has a gun?" I heard a door open as a loud scream came over the line. I could hear 2 loud rounds of popping, and silence. "Shit! Shit! Shit!" I screamed out loud. I knew what this meant. Tears started rolling down my face. The screen started lighting up again. This time, the name said Carlos Jenkins. I took a deep breath as I answered it. "The VIC just called again. Could have a DOA Jenkins. You took too much fucking time," I yelled into the phone. "How has anyone been calling you, Kara?" he said, confused. "Don't play this game with me right now. Have you reached the destination or not?" I looked at the screen in front of me. We reached the cabin about a mile off the main road. I hate to tell you this, but everyone is gone. There was silence on his end. "Shit." I rubbed my face. The skin began to get hot from anger. "But I don't understand how anybody could have called you tonight." I looked up from my desk, confused. "What do you mean?" "We found 3 sets of skeletal remains. One was a male adult, presumed to be the father, and 2 young girls. The remains have to be at least 12 months old." My chest got tight and the room started spinning. I was about to pass out. "The weird thing is," Jenkins started to say, "we found the 2 female skeletons in the closet, but one had a cordless phone in their hand, trying to get help, I guess.